As much fun as it is to pick on Capcom for their strange decisions in 2018 and of course the previous years, one thing is for sure, lately they have been killing it on these compilations or collections that we have been seeing. Of course, the Mega Man Legacy Collection recently released on the Nintendo Switch, we reviewed it on the channel and it was a fantastic compilation of classic Mega Man games. Then we had the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, which once again, absolutely was fantastic. It was one of my favorite games so far of 2018, just because of how many awesome different games are on that cartridge, plus the inclusion of online mode, museum stuff, character sprite models and whatnot. It was just a fantastic game and a game that I really enjoyed. But with Mega Man and Street Fighter, I'm pretty familiar with those franchises. I'm not the biggest Mega Man fan in the world. I enjoy the games, but I'm not a super diehard. So when it came to the Mega Man X Legacy Collection Part 1 and 2, honestly a lot of this was foreign to me. I own Mega Man X, well the Japanese version, on the Super Nintendo. I've played it, but as far as the other 7 titles are concerned, I wasn't too familiar with them. So this is sort of uncharted territory for me. So I was curious to see what these games were all about and see how they performed on the Nintendo Switch. Capcom sent over a review copy for Mega Man X Legacy Collection Part 1 and 2 on the Nintendo Switch for me to check out, and so these are my thoughts on the games. This is what I like about the series, what I don't like about the series, and whether or not you should pick it up. So is this one of the best collections of games that Capcom has done and a must-own for the Nintendo Switch? Sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's get into the Mega Man X Legacy Collection and see what it's all about.
Hey, RGT 85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards!
So the Mega Man X Legacy Collection is broken up into 2 parts, parts 1 and 2, and from what everyone has told me, part 1 was going to be what I enjoyed the most. These were the best games in the X Collection. Now part 1 includes Mega Man X, Mega Man X2, X3, and X4. The previous 3 games, the X, X2, and X3 were released on the Super Nintendo, with X4 coming out on the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. Now, X3 did release on the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn as well, but the version used in this game is the Super Nintendo version of the game. Now, the big difference from Mega Man X from previous Mega Man games is there's definitely a lot more emphasis on action, which I kind of like. In the previous Mega Man games, it was more relying on platforming and figuring out which weapons to use at certain times, whereas with Mega Man X, you could do a lot more with Mega Man and subsequent characters that become available throughout the series. Mega Man can dash, and Mega Man can also wall jump and wall cling, so he really has a new sort of dynamic to him, and it's definitely a lot faster paced than the original Mega Man games were. Like I said, I own Mega Man X or Rockman X on the Super Famicom, so I was familiar with that title, but I was curious to see how these other 3 titles were, and of course the other 4 titles available in Legacy Collection Part 2. Now, as usual, Capcom has filled this game to the brim with extra content, and I love that about their compilations because they always seem to do a really good job of going all out and adding in cool new stuff. One of the things they added is something called Hunter Medals, and Hunter Medals are basically achievements that you get throughout the game by doing certain things, by beating certain enemies in a certain time. There's all a bunch of different achievements that you can go after with these Hunter Medals. It really promotes replay value with these games after you've gone through them so that you can collect other subsequent things. Now, of course, each game has its own art gallery as well, and much like the previous Capcom compilations, this art gallery is absolutely fantastic. There's high resolution scans of all sorts of different artwork from all 4 of the X1 or the X through X4 games available to check out, and I always enjoy the museum aspect of these things. I love looking through the character artwork, the level design artwork, and seeing how it came from a concept to a final game. Now, of course, they added in something else with this, which is a product gallery that I thought was actually really cool. Once again, it has high resolution scans of a bunch of different merchandise. It has stuff like toys and capsule toys, music compilations, t-shirts, all sorts of cool stuff. There's also an animated short included in this game as well, and even trailer stuff. You can view trailers and commercials from the different Mega Man X games that were released during the time frame of when the games came out, so I really like that. It's a real fun nostalgia trip down memory lane to see these different things, or maybe maybe see things that you never knew existed as far as commercials go. And so I always love the museum aspect of Capcom's compilations, and the Mega Man X Legacy Collection does not disappoint in that aspect. There's also a brand new game mode in each of the 2 games. It's called X Challenge Mode, and it's really good for series veterans. Basically what the X Challenge Mode is it gives you the ability to take on 2 bosses at once in a procedurally generated thing. So there's like different levels, and you go against 2 different bosses, and before you go against these bosses, you could pick out 3 different weapon types, so you can use stronger weapons against bosses that you feel will work better against them. And it's definitely for series veterans. I absolutely got my ass kicked in this because, let's be honest guys, I am not a Mega Man expert. I said this in my Mega Man Legacy Collection video. I am not a die-hard Mega Man fan. I enjoy the games, I've played the games, but I'm not too well invested in the series. I'm not too deep into it to where I'm really good at it. But thankfully, there is a scrub tier mode that they've added into this game as well, which I really enjoyed, called Rookie Hunter. And basically it makes the game a lot easier. Damages from enemies aren't as big, and boss battles are a lot easier because your weapons do a lot more damage when you're facing them. I tried to play it with it off, and I did okay, but once I turned it on, I was pleasantly surprised with how easy the game got. It still definitely has a bit of a challenge, but the nice thing is you could switch it off and on. So if you sort of get stuck in a certain spot or against a certain boss, you could turn it on momentarily and then turn it back off and play the game at the standard difficulty level. Now, once you play the actual games, as usual, Capcom has different things that you can adjust in them. You can adjust the screen size so that it's the standard screen size, a smaller screen size, which is more related to the original release of the game, or a widescreen mode. There are also additional borders that you can use on the screen as wallpapers, and CRT filters if you like that old school look. Now, all the games look and play as they should, and like I said, I'm not too familiar with the X collection of games, but I did enjoy playing around through X and through X4. I thought they were really well done games, but by X4, I kind of was a bit bored with it. I felt like the series had pretty much gotten a bit stagnant, and you could sort of see that in the game. The gameplay is still fantastic. They add in enough stuff from game to game, like the addition of playable characters such as X, but it definitely starts to wear out its welcome a little bit. You'll probably have games that you like more so than others in the series, which really becomes prevalent in the X2 collection, which we'll talk about in a second. But honestly, I enjoy playing these games. It definitely has that Mega Man X style. Like I said, definitely more action orientated, but then you get to choose which boss battles and which levels you want to do in any order you want. So I enjoyed that. It's definitely a great blend of the classic Mega Man with a more fast-paced, action-orientated thing. So these games were actually very fun to me, but like I said, when it comes to the X Collection 2, I was told that I would not enjoy these games as much. Now, much like the X Collection 1, it does have the museum feature so that you can view high-resolution artwork of a lot of these games. And I read online pretty much the complaints about these games, that the series had just gotten way too stagnant, and you could definitely see it with some of these titles. Now, the first 2 games were released on the PS1, X5 and X6. X7 and X8 were PS2 titles. So when you think about it, it's actually kind of cool to have some PS2 games on your Nintendo Switch. Now, X5 and X6 were pretty fun. X7, unfortunately, included some 3D segments in the game that just did not work well. It was sort of what people were going for. It definitely sort of reminded me of Castlevania 64, including these 3D segments, although Castlevania 64 was a completely 3D game that just didn't really fit. The camera wasn't quite right, and of course, you did not have the ability to sort of, control the camera like you probably should have, and it just led to a lot of unnecessary deaths. Now, one thing that I found interesting, aside from the fact that this also features the aforementioned X Challenge mode, which allows you to play 2 bosses at once, was they supposedly redid the graphics in Mega Man X8, and I had no idea about this game. I had never played Mega Man X8. It was a game that was completely foreign to me. So when I decided to check out Mega Man X8 as I was playing through the games, honestly, I was absolutely blown away by this game. I don't know if it's just the high-resolution graphics that they put into this game, but I absolutely love this game. This game is the Mega Man game I think I've always wanted. I have had so much fun playing Mega Man X8. You can do so many cool things in Mega Man X8. You have a whole variety of different characters, and at the start of a level, you can choose what characters you want to play as. So you always have 2 characters at a time, and you could switch on the fly. There's double double team moves as well, and I just really like the pacing of the game. Each character feels unique enough to where it's worth checking out different characters. You can also have different helpers as well that sort of help you navigate through the levels and tell you boss strategies or where hidden areas are, and each helper has their own strengths and weaknesses as well. I don't know what it was about this game, but it just hit straight home to me, and honestly, it was the most played Mega Man X game out of the whole collection for me. Mega Man X8 with this new polish of graphics and this high resolution output just looks so good, and it flows so well. Maybe Mega Man himself is a little too tall, that sort of threw me off at first, and he's pretty quick, but I like that about that. And all the characters, like I said, just feel really good, and I just had so much fun. I love the different levels. There's different deviants in the levels. There are 3D segments, but they're much more streamlined, and they're much better than an X7. Mega Man X8 just blew me away, honestly, and now it's a game that I'm absolutely obsessed with, and I absolutely love playing. Now, of course, there is one big negative aspect of the Mega Man X Legacy Collection Part 1 and 2 that only affects the Nintendo Switch version of this game. Everything else, of course, is completely applicable to the PS4, the Xbox One versions of these games. Once again, Capcom cheaped out, and what do I mean by that? When you purchase the Mega Man X Collection physically, you only get X1 through 4 on the cartridge. X5 through 8 is available via download only, and I don't understand why they do that. There are much bigger games on the Nintendo Switch that manage to fit on the cartridge. When you look at stuff like the Street Fighter Collection, that all fit on one cartridge. When you look at things like the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, once again, that all fit on one cartridge. So I don't understand why these games cannot fit all on one cartridge. Maybe it's the added stuff, but then again, when you look at it comparative to the Street Fighter Collection, I think the Street Fighter Collection actually has more bonus related content than the Mega Man X Legacy Collection does. So I don't understand why Capcom is just so keen on doing this, especially with the Mega Man collections. But that's definitely the biggest gripe. The game does look good in handheld mode though, so I will give it props for that because it's a great collection to play on the go. And honestly, it's a collection that you need to own. If you enjoy action platformer games, you're gonna love the Mega Man X Legacy Collection. They did a really good job. I love the stuff that they added in. I love the stuff like the Hunter medals and the boss rush mode where you can choose different things. I love the rookie mode, and I love the upgrades done to Mega Man X8 because it really made it a game that I just didn't care about into a game that I'm really interested in and I really enjoy playing. So once again, I have to give Capcom props. They absolutely knocked it out of the park with extra content, with the museum stuff, and just the general presentation of the Mega Man X Legacy Collection. If you enjoy Mega Man games, but you want a little more action, you're gonna want to check out this series. It's a fantastic compilation with 8 different games. You're gonna like at least 4 or 5 of them, I'm sure, and there's tons of replay value in these games as well, so it's definitely a collection worth checking out. So those are my thoughts on the Mega Man X Legacy Collection Part 1 and 2 for the Nintendo Switch. And once again, I'd like to thank Capcom for sending over a review copy, because without this, I probably would have never discovered Mega Man X8, and now, like I said, I'm completely obsessed with that game, and I want to go play it some more. So let me know in the comments section down below if you plan on checking out this compilation, and thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. I'm doing all sorts of crazy videos on here. You never know what's going to come up next, and as always, thank you for watching this video, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Later.